If you want to reach your full potential as an athlete, then you need to learn how to harness your anger in performances. The best athletes in the world know how to use those times of adversity and anger to make them better in performance, not for them to work against them. In today's video, I'm going to give you the step-by-step process that we use with our pro athletes to harness their anger so that you can do the same and perform at the next level. Hey, my name is Matt Calderoni, co-founder of Molliteum, where we help athletes discover and reach their true potential by building their resilience. And since 2015, we've helped just over 5,300 athletes, ranging from the youth to professional level, to tap into this extra gear known as resilience. And the reason that we started this channel is because I used to be a pro athlete, I struggled with this side of performance, and I don't want you to do the same. Anger can be a very powerful tool for you in performance if you know how to use it, if being the key word. Most athletes, unfortunately, let their anger derail them. They let their emotions get to them. They aren't able to focus in on the task at hand because they get distracted by the negativity going on. In fact, a great example of this is myself. I'll never, ever forget when I learned how to tap into my anger and use it as what we call now a trigger. Now, I was 12 years old. I used to absolutely love the sport of soccer. I still do today. But I was somebody who was a fanatic. And I knew since the age of about 4 years old that I wanted to become a pro. In fact, I always used to watch the Italian national soccer team with my brother Chris, and I'll never forget the first day of really falling in love with the sport when I was watching Italy play Sweden, and then my brother and I decided to go in the backyard. I put on my mom's gardening gloves, and I started to be the goalie while he was the player. Now, when I was about 12 years old, I decided to make that jump from just playing house league soccer or being the guy with the gardening gloves in the backyard to actually going to representation levels of soccer or the rep levels of soccer. And during this process, I had a bit of a challenging time. First off, I was somebody that wasn't that fit. I ate a little bit too much of my grandmother's pasta on both sides because, of course, we're Italian and it was amazing food. And I was a little bit rounder for a soccer player. I also wasn't the most naturally skilled at the sport. I was somebody that had to learn a lot, and I never had any formal coaching as a goalkeeper other than watching it on TV. And of course, I was playing with players who had already been playing at that rep level for many years before this. So I was kind of like the outcast. I was like the late person coming to the team. In fact, I only played like 1 year what's called All-Star at the time before I made that jump. And that's how I knew the coach who was at that next level that said, hey, by the way, I'm managing the team now this year. Would you like to come be a part of it? And I said, sure. I didn't realize how tough of a jump that it would be. So when I got there, unfortunately, I hit a lot of hard times. Now, naturally, in any situation like this, I was facing a lot of adversity. I wasn't that good. I wasn't able to really compete at that level yet because I didn't have any formal training. I was kind of figuring it out as I went. And naturally, my team wasn't doing it as best as they could because, unfortunately, I was letting in some goals that I probably shouldn't have. I was in my own head with this. Now, unfortunately, I ended up having to leave the team and faced a decent amount of adversity doing this when my coach told me at the time, hey, Matt, look, I don't think this sport is for you. I don't think this position is for you. Maybe you should try something else. Now imagine telling somebody who's super passionate about the sport of soccer at the age of 12 years old, who wants to be a pro since the age of like 4, that it's just not for them. Of course, it made me angry. Of course, it made me feel in a way sad. Of course, I was facing adversity. So that day, my dad ended up coming out and giving the coach a piece of his mind, but I'll never forget going home and my mom and dad gave me 2 choices and they said this, look, you can essentially use this as a time to grow. You can use this as a time where you continue the sport and you go do what you got to do. Or if you want to step away and this isn't for you, we totally support you. The choice is yours. That day I made a choice from the age of 12 that I was going to prove this man wrong. And instead of using this as a way to say, oh, poor me, why did this happen to me? This shouldn't be happening to me. Instead, I turned it around to say, hey, I'm actually going to use this as a way to prove this individual wrong in any way, shape, or form. So from the age of 12 till about 17 years old, I ended up going through it and pushing myself with this one trigger. It wasn't something that consumed me every day, but it was definitely something that came into my mind when I wanted to quit and when I was going through those tough times. But I will tell you this, it fueled me to go get a scholarship. It fueled me to push myself continuously once I got that scholarship to keep getting better. And it fueled me eventually to get to the pro level at around 18, 19 years old. And that's ultimately what stuck with me. And as a result of that, I was able to take my game to new heights because I could channel that anger instead of it working against me, where most people often feel bad for themselves. Like I mentioned in this story, that was an example of me using something that we call here to help athletes channel their anger, a trigger. Now, a trigger is a person or event that you want to prove wrong in some way, shape, or form, or prove right through your performances, because there's 2 kinds of triggers like you can see here. There's light triggers, those people that believed in you, those people that always had your back, those people that always push you to keep going forwards, or those life-changing moments that you're saying, I'm lucky to be here. That's a light trigger, and those are situations you want to prove right by pushing yourself. Now, on the other side, the dark triggers, These are those people or events that you want to prove wrong. Maybe like me, that coach that said you wouldn't be able to do it, or those conditions that you never should have made it as a kid, but you found a way or made one. That's often what a lot of our pro athletes do. Those are dark triggers. Those are situations that you will work to prove wrong no matter what. Now, in this specific situation, I was tapping into a dark trigger, and I wasn't the only athlete to do this. Think, one of the most classic stories you hear about dark triggers is the great Michael Jordan. How he talked about how he had his high school basketball coach tell him he wasn't good enough to make his varsity team, tell him he couldn't make the team that year. So what did he do? Instead of making this a feel-bad story for himself, he ended up working against it. He said, I'm going to find a way or make one, and I'm going to make that team next year. He let it fuel him. He let it push him. In fact, he even talked about it in his NBA Hall of Fame speech. But the point is this, he used that dark trigger. He used that tough time.
And then you had all your media naysayers. Oh, scoring champion can't win an NBA title. Or, you know, you're not as good as Magic Johnson. You're not as good as Larry Bird. You're good, but you're not as good as those guys. You know, I had to listen to all this. And that put so much wood on that fire that it kept me each and every day trying to get better as a basketball player.
Heck, we've had many of our own athletes here at Molliteum who've also turned these triggers, these times of dark, into light. We had an athlete who had a coach challenge him and say, are you even tough enough? And it ended up allowing him to push himself to get to that next level. My point is, when you're able to harness this anger and harness this adversity and use it to drive results instead of having it push you to the other way and feel bad for yourself and derail you, you're able to tap into that next level. Now, the trick behind a trigger is to actually know how to properly use it. Most people use them wrong. The right way to use a trigger is to think about it for a brief point in time so that it sparks you, it triggers you, it excites you for the moment, and then you get going. Where most people get this wrong, though, is that they often let it consume them. They let that negative situation control who they are or who they become. You don't want that. You don't want to become the athlete who's, cold and dark and gruesome because of the fact that one person said they couldn't do it. Reality check is this: most people are going to doubt you on your way to the top. That's just the reality. But if you let it consume you, it's never going to work. If you use it as a way to spark that fire, to fuel you, to get you going, just to get you, started, and then you take off, that's the best way to use it. So, with that being said, here are the 4 steps that you need to follow if you're going to identify your triggers and use them in performance. Now, the first most basic step is you need to identify these triggers. Now, all you're going to do in a very simple manner is you're going to create 2 lists. One list for your light triggers, one list for your dark triggers. What you're going to do is get a piece of paper or a journal or your phone even, and simply divide the sheet into 2 sides. Now, under each list, you want to come up with 3 triggers. These people or events that you either want to prove right or prove wrong. So let's go through a couple examples for some light triggers. Light triggers can be people that had your back during this time. So it could be like a parent or a sibling or a cousin or a coach that believed in you. That would go under as a light trigger, and you're going to work to prove them right. It could be the fact that maybe you got a second chance at life. Maybe you had something that happened drastic to you and you're lucky to be here. That would go under a light trigger situation. Maybe it's that you feel that you have such a great support system of people and that they're able to push you and that they're always having your back no matter what. That would go under your light triggers. Write it down and put it under that list. Now, on the dark trigger side, what you want to do is you want to come up with the same situations, those people or situations that you want to prove wrong. These could be coaches that said you wouldn't be able to do it. In my scenario, I would have put that coach under there. It could be that you come from a tough upbringing where you're not supposed to make it, but you're doing it anyways. That would go under there. That's for a lot of our pro athletes. Or maybe it's that somebody said one time or tried to purposely knock you off your course and you knew they were coming after you. That would go under there. The point is, though, you want to have 3 on each side so that you have a nice list to choose from when you're going into performances. Now, step 2 is to identify the result of how you're going to prove these people right or wrong. Where people get this wrong with triggers is that they just think about these things and they get angry, right? Or they get super motivated and they don't do anything. What you want to do, though, is attach it to an end result. So all you want to do for this step is write out the current results that you're working towards. So for example, if I wanted to prove that coach wrong, I was currently working toward the result of becoming a pro and getting a scholarship. Now, in my situation, if I was working to prove that coach wrong, I would have wrote out at the time that I was working towards a scholarship and eventually becoming a pro athlete. But to keep it very simple, all you want to do is write out what your desire is or what the end result is that you're working towards right now, because what you're going to do once you have these triggers is attach it to saying, hey, if I prove this right and this wrong, this is what I'm going to get for the result. This is how I'm working towards it. Not, I'm just going to be angry. Instead, it's, they said I couldn't do it, I'm going to push myself. They said I could do it, I'm going to make sure they're happy. It's that simple. Step number 3, you need to identify and attach feelings to each of these triggers. Now, a very simple thing you need to remember is that people do things to change how they feel, nothing else. Now, oftentimes we think we're seeing people who are chasing those material things, when really they're not. They're chasing the way that those things will make them feel. So for each trigger, what you need to do is describe the feeling you're going to get when you accomplish that and prove those people right or prove them wrong. So for example, if I was going to describe the feeling I would have when I proved that coach wrong, it actually wasn't a negative feeling. I was actually going to have a feeling of accomplishment and a feeling of self-belief. That's really what it was if I made it pro. But what you need to do is get very clear on the feelings that you're going to experience once you do those things. So if you have a light trigger that you're going to prove right, how are you going to feel? Are you going to feel overwhelmed? Are you going to feel joyful? Are you going to feel excited? If you prove those people wrong, are you going to feel finally like you accomplished something like I did? Are you going to feel, better? Oftentimes, it's not that you're getting revenge. It's not really something we chase. We chase the feeling that getting revenge allows us to get, to have that feeling of accomplishment, to say, I finally did it. But understand what the feelings are behind those effects so you can make sure that you're chasing those. Now, the final step number 4, you got to press these triggers. So you're going to do this at 2 points of time, either before the day starts to get you motivated or before performance to get you motivated. If you're going through a tough time, I highly suggest you press these things at the start of the day by simply reading this list you now just created. This is going to give you the daily motivation that you need to keep pushing until you get out of that dark period. Now, if you're going into a performance, you're going to want to push these as well. Now, all of our athletes before performance push one of these light or dark triggers so that they can get motivated and excited going into their game. Because let's be honest, sometimes you're not going to feel up for a game, and you can't depend on external things to get you going. So all you need to do is look at this list and it'll get you going. Now, to make the choice of which one to press, it's very simple. It's whatever's resonating with you in the moment. Sometimes I have that coach that even pops into my head now, and that motivates me for the day for my business. Before, when I was playing soccer, it used to be that sometimes my family was supporting me, and that got in for me for the day. Point is, though, it's whatever resonates with you at that point in time, and also, it's whatever you can control the most. Don't let these control you, you instead control them. And there you have it. Now you have the 4 steps that you can follow to make sure you tap into your triggers. Now, if you got value from this video, please like, subscribe, click the notification bell, leave a comment down below, banter with us a little bit here. Tell us what maybe we're missing. Tell us what you think about it. Maybe you're using triggers, but it helps us keep growing this channel and helps us rank in the algorithm so we can keep bringing you free content. Now, if you do want to work with us, one of our Molliteum coaches here, all you need to do is apply down below and we'll see if you're a good fit for our programs. Now, if you want to work on a program on your own, you can also check out the link down below for the Molliteum Pocket Coach. Now, if you don't want any of that and you just want some free tips and tricks, you can sign up for the Molliteum Insider down below. It's our newsletter. It comes to you once a week and we give you the best resilience skills that there are to build your resilience. With that being said, make sure to check out some other videos here. And of course, stay resilient.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch a full podcast episode, click right here.